Welcome to Your Story Doesn't End Here, the mental health podcast for military and veterans. I'm your host, Rachel, and my mission with this podcast is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, bring awareness to mental health issues, and provide value and solutions to help make life more abundant. Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming back for another episode of Your Story Doesn't End Here. Today I have our first episode with two guests on it. I have Kelly and Dan Hamon. They are both the owners of Hamon International Hypnosis, where they help clients with stress management through a number of modalities and techniques. They're trained in hypnosis, life coaching, executive coaching, tapping, meditation, naturopathic essential oils, NLP, timeline therapy, etc. Dan specifically is a 20-year Navy veteran, a licensed massage therapist, has certifications in aroma touch, life coaching, hypnosis, NLP, timeline therapy, essential oils. He's essential oils coach, with a bachelor's in holistic health, working towards his master's and doctorate in natural medicine. And Kelly has taught extensively in the education system in many grades, including inner city schools, universities, and colleges. Was the career director for a private college and career assistant for a not-for-profit, corporate trainer manager, and executive coach. Licensed for New York teaching, associate's degrees in special education, bachelor's, double major, communication and math, master's education, certifications in aroma touch, happiness coaching, life coaching, train the trainer, hypnosis, timeline therapy, and NLP. Wow. So much there. That is a mouthful. I am so excited to have you both on the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us, Rachel. It's good to be here.
Thank you.
So, Dan, I would love to just start off by getting into your story with the Navy and a little bit of your background with that, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
Okay, so we wanted to give something useful. So on my first ship, it was an aircraft carrier, and I was in supply. I was a little bit older than everybody else, and as an E3, I was already working in the office and given some heavy responsibilities. And the problem was they just kept giving me more work because I never complained. And I just dug in. And I was losing a lot of sleep and things like that. And that was my first marriage. It was often a state of chronic heartache, a lot of stress going on, and separations when we go out for sea duty and stuff like that on workups. It was hard, but I started with what they wanted me to get done in supply for ordering massive amounts of orders. They'd give me paperwork kind of late, and there was no such thing as a computer yet. I had to type everything and had to not make mistakes, and it took forever. And finally, they just let me work whenever I could work, sleep whenever I could sleep. Sometimes I was so tired I didn't know whether I wanted to eat, sleep, or go to the bathroom. It was just really, really rough. And it got to the point where I experienced what I call brownout, a breakdown being a blackout. And I think of it like a tree with a rope on it. That's us. And the stress is what's pulling at us. And a breakdown is when that tree snaps. And what happened to me, I would say, was more like it got stretched way, way down. The rope broke, and I almost got emotional whiplash, and just a sensory overload. And I thought I was going crazy. I'd go down into the reefer decks and just sit against the door with my knees and my arms, and I had crazy thoughts I'd never had before. I thought I was going nuts. I was super conscientious to always follow up on all calls that came in, and I'd be in the office and I'd talk to somebody, I'd be answering the call, I'd be telling everything, and and then not do anything, not write anything down, not take care of it or anything. And I went and I talked with the senior chief corpsman, our medical guys, and fortunately, he was able to tell me, "No, you're not going crazy." And that's where I came up with understanding this sensory overload. And it took a lot of nursing from my spouse, a lot of patience and nursing from my spouse of that time. And it took time. It took time licking my wounds and also understanding ways to be patient with myself when I was having a hard time. I started only doing about 200%, which was 200% less than I was doing. And they were happy. They were happy when I started doing a human effort and saying, this is, they were just terrible at saying, okay, he's about to collapse. We need to do something. They just had me work the whole thing out. It's the nature of a lot of commands and divisions. So I went through the military. I came very close to getting out at 10 years. And I had some self-confidence issues, some self-esteem issues, and I'm sure that those lent to that early situation where I got just ground down into the dirt and emotionally. And so I read a lot of books, went to a lot of seminars trying to figure out what was going on. Thought I had made great progress. You'd have to ask my current wife whether I was or not. But we ended up going, we were in Nevada and Reno. We ended up going down to Las Vegas to get certified in hypnosis and timeline therapy. And while I was in that process, I ended up finding out as we were training, ending up finding out that I had an incredible fear. Was probably my very first instinct. I knew that I was born with something that they had to get a surgeon in. And if we didn't have computers and cell phones, you can just imagine what the whole thing was when he was 4 hours away. They had to get a surgeon in the next day and gave me about a 50% survival rate. My folks hadn't had, my mother had not had a child for 7 years. And I don't even know if there was miscarriages, but as the situation unrolled for me, I figured probably she was really, really scared. And that was my first emotion that I collected, a fear. And so every decision I made, every conclusion I came to had that as a basis. And so this was what I was fighting. I'm like, why do I have such a confidence problem when my parents are so great, my family's so great? And so it's something I always struggled with. I was tenacious to do something. I was so scared all the time. I just decided I refuse to not do something I need to do just because it scares me to death. But that's how I was going, and I got really high marks in the military and everything, but I had this problem during this time. And you look at my records, you would never know because I was trying so dang hard. But when we went through this program and what we help people with, it knocked that out. It erased that fear by allowing the unconscious to understand that I had the solutions. That's the only reason it holds on to those things that you get the back talk in your mind for, is that it hasn't resolved an issue, so it holds on to it, and every now and then it lets it out, and you start suffering for it, and it's just giving you a chance to try and resolve it. Well, when many of those things were resolved for me, I had some physiological changes. I drive with glasses, and when I drove down to Las Vegas from Reno, it was a terrible drive. I hated driving at night. When I drove back at night, I didn't even care if I was wearing my glasses. I had always been chilly, being San Diego with a jacket because of the wind. Now I go out in New York, I go out in 30-degree weather in a shirt. There were physiological changes because so many of my habits or actions were based on those initial fears. And so that's what we love to help people with. And somebody, if I could have worked with me way back then, I would have resolved those fears, and I imagine the rest would have been, everything would have been different. Everything's different now. Our motto now is the most flexible will always win. So we work to be flexible, work to teach people to be flexible.
So much to unpack here. I think your story is incredible. And I think that so many people can relate. I know myself, I can relate to feeling like I was putting in 200% effort and maybe not getting the recognition I felt I deserved. And I know so many people that I served with that felt the same way. And usually the response is pretty similar to yours, just maybe not physically, but crouched in a corner and, not feeling like enough, I guess would be the right word to say here. So I'm curious, did you start learning with the NLP and the timeline therapy? Did you start learning while you were still in around that 10-year mark? And did you implement it? Or did you more implement after you got out of the military?
Well, at the 10-year mark, I had a retired senior chief who just made a comment that made sense that I went on and finished the last 10 years when I had spent 10 years just wanting to get out. And then I never thought about it again until it was time to get out. But on that carrier, I wondered who the heck that was during that time I was having that bad time. Why things that I wouldn't even think of were in my mind. And I was reading a book. I was healing quite a lot, and I was reading a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay. And I come to the altar call where I say, I'm okay. And then this little voice in my head says, no, you're not. And I didn't know how to argue with that. This is something that we teach people, is how to get rid of that back talk in your mind, so that what you're feeding it is where you want to go instead of suffering from where you've been. It was much after I was always reading, always studying, doing schooling, thinking I was going so far. But until we learned timeline therapy and to communicate with the unconscious, many years after I retired, there was no real progress.
So just for listeners' sake, because I know what timeline therapy is, I've experienced it before, but I'm sure many of the people listening to this podcast have absolutely no idea what you're talking about when you say NLP, timeline therapy. And either you or Kelly can take this question because I know you're both well versed in it, but if you could just give an explanation of what is NLP, what is timeline therapy, what are we talking about, and why is it such a big deal and so instrumental in making these massive changes and shifts, not only mentally, but also physiologically?
So it's important to understand how the unconscious works, and that there's I used to think that our brain was read-only memory, ROM, but it's random access memory. After my first 4 years, I did get out, and I went to a lady who called herself a maturation specialist. We understand now she was a hypnotist. And what she did is she addressed one reoccurring situation that I thought about from my childhood, where I was feeling that I was being ignored, probably 3 years old, and it was nap time at noon. And I had a big issue from it, and she took care of that. Then I learned that it was that the unconscious was very susceptible to how we want to program it. Many of the things we believe are just stories. So when I changed that story to my mother understanding what was my issue, picking me up and rocking me and putting me to sleep, unconscious said, okay, I believe that could happen. And so for timeline therapy, what it is that the unconscious has a recording, a record of everything that's happened to you from the time you were born. And you might say from before you were born, because from the time you're born, you're being acted upon by other people's experiences and their history. So sometimes when we work with timeline therapy, we have to go back and heal the mother and father too, in that person's experience, so that they can be clear. And if you think of that line, it's a straight line with a number of bumps. The straight lines are when you felt good, when you had a success. What would it be like if we just kept thinking about all these successes we've had, all these victories we've had? But what comes back to us is the issues. The reason is that's how life is supposed to be. It's supposed to be happy and dealt with in an emotionally mature perspective. But those bumps are the anomalies that the unconscious is holding on to until we can deal with it. And they flare up and they come to us in oh, I want to do this. No, you can't do that. The negative backtalk and things like that. But unconscious isn't mean. It's not kind either. But when we show the unconscious that we've learned lessons through timeline therapy, it's gone. We don't want people to relive an experience, but we just want unconscious to take us to the first spot and then make sure that we clear everything out with the lessons that have been learned. NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, and I really like teaching people to do hypnotic self-NLP, where one thing I do is I train people to create habits, quick habits, by teaching the unconscious quickly. And once you have that negative out of your head, you've got to feed it. And we go into a kind of a hypnotic state anytime we're just relaxing. We're watching TV, we're driving for a long distance, we're about to go to sleep, we're about to wake up. And so it's a very natural state, but we can use it to resolve the things that were put there early by natural hypnosis.
Thank you so much for explaining that. I think that a lot of people in the military would hear this stuff and think it's very woo-woo, because it sounds like it. If you don't know what it is and you don't understand it, I think that researching and understanding how the unconscious mind works is absolutely mind-blowing. It's phenomenal, because there truly is so much that we can do with just our unconscious. And you brought up a really good point with us having life experiences and our brain just holding on to it until we're ready to deal with it. And so that being said, I can't think of how many people I know that have gone through these life experiences, even maybe just in their time in the military alone, and they've never truly dealt with these experiences. They just kind of pass on by and then hope that later on that something will resolve itself, or maybe we heal from it. And a lot of therapists that, I've talked to or worked with, they really don't dig super deep into stuff like that all the time. A lot of times it's mainly like, okay, well, what can we fix here and now? Or what tools can we give you from this point forward? So when we're talking about hypnosis and talking about tapping into the unconscious mind, can you give us a little bit of an idea of what something like that looks like? Because I think most people hear hypnosis and they think like, oh, you're going to make me do something crazy and I don't have any control over my body. But I would love for you to just Give us a general breakdown of what it looks like when you're working with someone in the field of hypnosis.
So, timeline therapy is, and hypnosis with the unconscious. We all have memories, good and bad memories. And bad memories, stress, traumas don't disappear. They don't go away. And talking about them doesn't make them better, and it doesn't make them go away. And in fact, it makes you live them again. Okay, it makes you experience the trauma again, which isn't good for your body, nor your mind, your nervous system, so on and so forth. So timeline therapy, what we do is we have you go above your timeline, looking for the event that was the event that may have been the first event, may have been before you were born, may have been when you were born, may have been after you were born, whenever it was. We have you go to the event. We do not have you experience it. This is the difference between most counseling. Most counseling nowadays is based on cognitive behavior and talking about it, reliving it. Timeline therapy, we never want you to experience it. As therapists, as practitioners, master practitioners, our job is for you not to experience it again. Our job is for you just to see it as if you were in a hot air balloon over the timeline, over the event, just looking, disassociated from it, no feelings, or as if you were in the back of a movie theater seeing a play or a movie playing out. And if you start to have any feelings, because we do all of our work virtually, we do it on Zoom, so we can see your face, we can see the expression. If you're having any discomfort, we bring you to a mentally safe place where you will not experience it. And with timeline therapy, we have you go look at the experience and find the positive learnings from the experience. And the reason why the positive is that the trauma or whatever that experience was is associated with a negative emotion, sorrow, anger, fear, guilt, hurt. What we do is we dig up the tree. We don't have to actually experience it though. Again, we're just looking at it, looking for the positive learnings. Now, if we don't see anything positive about the experience itself, which sometimes we can't, but if we see the positive in the individual that was going through it, such as, I'm strong, I wasn't alone, I'm smart, I'm wise. These are the things we have that individual tell us. We don't do the work. It's the individual telling us about their positive learnings. Once we find those positive learnings, we've just disconnected the negative emotion from the experience. The memory will be there, but the negative emotion will be gone. And therefore, the trauma that was experienced before, which is the emotion that was there, is no longer there. It's been filled in with this beautiful black loam, if you're a gardener, beautiful black soil that's rich in nutrients. And now, because of that, it's cut down all the other negative things that have happened that were associated with that. Because the unconscious remembers everything, and it stacks its memories up in weird sorts of ways where it's connecting one thing to another. So if there's anything else connected to that trauma, all of that emotion is gone. It's as if the person is starting a new life. Myself, anger was a huge thing because I had gone through certain trauma in my life. Anger was a big, huge thing for me. And after doing timeline therapy, I've changed quite a bit. You can ask Dan about that. Physiologically, yeah, there can be changes such as Dan had.
I would like to just kind of compare it to almost like pretending and being able to guide a dream state. It's kind of what it's like. One other reason we love doing it on Zoom and that people always want a copy of what's going on is when I explain to them how their countenance changes. They're smiling so much when they finish. They're so happy and elated. And after a number of sessions, they're also on the other end. They're being happy at the beginning, and spouses love it. spouses love when we do this because the other spouse is so happy.
The other thing too about timeline therapy too and hypnosis is that timeline therapy is a form of hypnosis. But this is the really great thing is that if you've had a trauma and you don't want to tell us what it is, you don't have to during this point. You just have to tell us, yes, I see the event. Good. Now, what are you learning from the event? The positive learnings. That's all you have to tell us. You do not have to tell us anything more. I've had clients where they didn't want to put the emotion on me. I don't have the emotion though, because I can disassociate from those things. But they didn't want to share it with me, which was fine. I didn't need to know it. And they felt more comfortable and more safe that way also. And so that's the other positive part about this type of alternative therapy.
I think that sounds amazing, especially for any clientele that you might have that maybe have PTSD or childhood traumas that realistically, I think in the military and veteran community, people have become so closed off to sharing what actually happened to them. Because let's be real, if you share a lot of these traumas from day one in the military, you're told you could get kicked out, you could lose your job, something could happen. And I know so many people that hang on to their traumas and they don't share them with anyone for fear of losing their job, or sometimes for fear of being looked at like they're different. A lot of the males in the military don't want to share those emotions because, there's being a male and sharing your emotions. Still, there's like this huge stigma with it, even till today. And so I think that it's amazing that there's this option where now you can go back and you can heal these life events by simply reframing in a way that doesn't make you experience them again. Because I've heard that fear from people before of therapy, because a lot of therapists, you're right, do make you go in and experience that event as a form of therapy. I've never tried that form of therapy before where they make you re-experience it, but I think that sounds terrifying if you've been through really, really traumatizing life events. People don't want to re-experience that. And so do you guys work with veterans and active duty military?
We haven't yet, but we're sure open to doing it. We have a special forum for when they come along, just in case they do come along. I had another thought too about this process of timeline therapy. It's like the mature person. And we find even if the mature person has a lot of baggage and life is very difficult, they've still learned a lot. And they can tell that child, you're going to survive. And look at all these things I've learned. And they can comfort that child. And that's what it is. They end up comforting that inner child and knowing it's safe and protected. And by the time they clear out, a lot of times there's a number of changes. I have our group of people, I have a system for them for creating habits and things like that. And they're all creating new patterns that before we worked with them, I'm sure they couldn't possibly have been doing these things every single day on these routines.
One of my clients came to me as for life coaching. And the individual was on disability because their boss was making them do illegal things as well as micromanaging them, which I'm sure in the military you experience a lot of, both things. Not the illegal part, but the micromanaging and constantly being on your back and, constantly telling you negative things. This person was physically, mentally not well. This person had a mental breakdown. And so went to all kinds of counselors, wasn't getting the answers she needed, wasn't getting the relief she wanted. And we just started doing life coaching. And because of my HR experience, I've had some training HR experience way back when. I know some HR laws, the DOL, Department of Labor, and the EOC, Equal Opportunity Center. And I said, look, you need to report this, to be the XYZ and ABC, and you have the right to do that. You need to talk to HR. You need to tell them what's happening in their company. And this person was afraid to, because she said, I might get fired because of that. And I said, well, how about looking for another job? I'm not good enough to get another job. Okay. So I'm sure some of your people have gone through this. I'm not good enough. Well, how about starting a business? I'm not good enough to do that either. And so we were at this no pass situation where there was no progression. And so we brought in timeline therapy for this person, and we got rid of 5 emotions: anger, sorrow, uh, hurt, fear, and guilt, all 5 emotions. And once we did, about 2 weeks later, when I communicated with her again, I asked what was going on and how things were going, because we like to follow up a lot with our customers, our clients, to make sure things are progressing as they should. And if there's anything that we need to go back and address, we do that. That's something we make sure we do. And so she said, it's been an incredible ride since we've worked together. I said, why? What happened? And she said, well, about 2 weeks, or about a couple of days after our therapy was finished, I went back to work because my disability ran out. And she said, the minute my boss had me come in, I knew they were lying to me. And soon after that, I went to HR. I'm like, what? You went to HR? And she said, yeah. Now, this is a person that was afraid to go to HR. She brought all the evidence of all the legal things and so on and so forth. And HR just kept on saying, are you going to sue us? Are you going to sue us? And she said, I don't know yet, which was a good answer too, because she wouldn't have answered that before. And in the end, they gave her a hefty package because she left by herself. And within a week's time, she got a new position. And this time as an executive, where she wasn't yet an executive, she now is an executive, where she's getting paid well over the amount that she was before. And she's feeling great. She's got healthy boundaries where she didn't before, and she's happy.
That is incredible. And, I obviously military members can't put in their, 2 weeks notice and walk off the job. But I think in the aspect of feeling like I'm not good enough, that I can't stick up for myself, you see those feelings a lot. You see them from people that stay in for 20 years when maybe they wanted to get out at 4 because they really didn't like what they did. And you see that from people that are getting out and they maybe accept a job at McDonald's when they have the potential to build their own business and impact lives. I mean, you see it all over the place. And so I think that, thank you for sharing that story. I think that it's incredible that such an impact can be made on someone's life through something that for a lot of people, I think is a lot simpler than therapy. And it's another option, right? It's not for everyone, but I think that it's an option for the people that want to utilize that avenue. Can I ask, is timeline therapy something that usually works for people after one session, or does it take multiple sessions for this to really work?
We like to do 4 sessions to begin with. And then you have big executives from large companies who go through this process like every 6 months just to clean up and get more inspiration and be freer. And so, but we work like 4 or 5 sessions as a package. And then from there, it's great to just keep tied in. We do Kelly leads a stress management class that our clients get to go to for free, which we charge people otherwise that are coming to it.
So just for purposes of our listeners taking value from what it is that you do, I'd love to at first have you share where people can find you. But also I know that you have monthly sessions that you're doing, one coming up on the 30th, if I remember correctly, of this month, April 2022. And then you also mentioned that you have a special for military and veterans. So I'd love for you to just share where people can find you if they want to work with you and what those monthly sessions are looking like, what all is included, and then how military and veterans can tap into that discount.
our website is HamonInternationalHypnosis.com. We'll leave that for you so you can pass it along. And there's one thing that I do in every class that I'd like to share with people now. It's something that I found by accident, and I always include it in treatment now. It's something to use if you have heartache, like you're separated from your family, or your NCO got really angry at you and you got red in the face. Anytime you're having an emotion that's an anomaly, either hurt emotionally or just kind of depressed, there's a place, if you take your right hand and you poke into your shoulder, right there, just below that spot, is a place where there's an artery and a vein that cross. And if you apply pressure there and take a breath, it will relieve any anxiety that chemistry is putting out from the heart area. And it's just, and they can ask at HamonInternationalHypnosis.com. You can get onto our calendar. You can contact us. You can email us, and we can go over those things. We have a 50% discount for veterans for everything we do, including I have a founder program for a course that I'm setting up and an app that we're setting up that has some huge benefits for a year. It's probably worth $7,000, and veterans would be able to get it for $250. In the stress management course, we're going even less. At that monthly class is $55, and for veterans it's only $20. And all they have to do is contact us.
$15 for veterans.
$15 for veterans.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that tidbit of information, for that really quick anxiety relieving technique. I think a lot of people could take advantage of that. That is huge. Thank you so much. And then also for sharing the information on where we can find you. For anyone who wants more information, on my end at least, about the session that's coming up on the 30th of April, I do have a Facebook page. It's called Military Leaders Past, Present, and Future. And I will be going live with Kelly and Dan here at the end of the week, just to talk a little bit more about what that session is going to look like, and for anyone that wants to sign up. But for future reference, please check out their website. The work that they're doing is absolutely amazing, and I will post all that information in the episode description for anyone that wants to check it out. But Dan and Kelly, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you so much, and I hope that a lot of people take advantage of getting in touch with you.
And thank you so much for having us, Rachel.
And thank you for what you're doing for the veterans. It's very important. It's a great mission to be on. And thank you so much. They need it, and they need you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in today. Each week, I'll be bringing you value in the mental health space and its direct impact on service members and veterans. If you feel you personally got value today from this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a 5-star rating and review and share this to your audience. Until next time, remember, your story matters, your mental health matters, and your story doesn't end here.